Hey guys, welcome back to another new video, and today I'm gonna be drawing these dairy milks using color pencils and markers. So the very first thing that I'm doing right now is that I am setting these dairy milks so that I can get a good angle of it. Once I'm happy with it, I'm going to take pictures and use that as reference as well. And I do this because since it is kind of like a still life drawing, if by any chance my hand falls on the chocolates, it's going to move and it's not going to look the same afterwards. And to avoid any accidents, I do this. And also, the angle that you see is totally different from the angle that I see. And once I'm happy with the pictures, I'm going to edit it, and this is the original picture that I took and this is the edited one. As you can see, this picture has a lot more contrast and the highlights are highly visible, and this is what I want. For today's drawing, I'm using my Brushstroke Artist sketchbook, which is a really nice sketchbook, and my usual sketching pencils and my Navneet color pencils, my Derwent Academy color pencils, and also I'm going to use these touchscrew markers, which by the way I have a review for and I'll link it in the description box down below. Now let's start our sketching process. As you can see, the chocolates are still in front of me, and also the picture that I took is right in front of me in a tub, which of course you cannot see because it is outside the frame, but it is still in my eyesight. So I have these two things as my reference, and I'm going to draw an accurate reference. I'm not going to leave out any single detail. I'm marking everything from the highlights to where the darker shadow should be, everything. I'm going to have a detailed sketch because I'm going to draw something hyper realistic. So for any hyper realistic drawing, you need to mark out every single detail in your sketch itself so that it's going to be easier for you to understand the structure of the subject that you're drawing. And also it's going to be easier for you to maintain those highlights and shadows when you start your coloring process. Once I'm done, I'm going to lighten it up with an E-double eraser, but this time I'm not going to take off too much graphite. I'm going to leave the sketch fairly visible to me because the drawing is going to be dark anyway, so the graphite is not going to show up through any places at all. For the color selection, since I have this chocolate right next to me, I'm going to compare it with the color swatch of the touchscrew markers and then pick out the colors that I can see from the reference. So this is the main advantage of creating a color swatch of whichever medium that you have, whether it be color pencils or watercolors or markers. This is the advantage for it because you can choose the colors pretty easily with this. Initially, I used these 6 colors, but as I was drawing, I used another color as well, which I will tell later on. And then I'm going to use this watercolor brush pen by Stettler, which for also I have a review and I'll link it in the description box. The very first thing that I do is I write the letters Cadbury that I can see in the wrappings. And I do this because it is the tiniest detail that you can see, and also since we're using alcohol markers, there is a chance that the ink might bleed into it and it might not be visible later on, so it is better to do that first. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to use the lightest color that I chose, and that is the lavender, and I'm going to block in all the areas that I can see the lightest shade in the reference image. Since these are alcohol markers, it is going to bleed through to the back of the paper to the next page, so I'm just keeping a paper underneath this to prevent that. Now I'm starting to add my darker colors, and as you can see, I am maintaining the highlights as white as I can. I'm not adding any markers to those areas at all because no matter how many color pencil layers you add on top of that, it's not going to match the highlight that you can get just by leaving them as plain white. So for the brightest highlights, I am maintaining all those areas as white as I can. Now I'm going to move on to the other wrapper and I'm going to do the same thing again. And as you can see, I just used around 3 colors for the purple shade, a lighter one, a mid-tone, and then a darker one. And I just used 2 shades for the chocolate, a lighter color and then a darker color. And it is already starting to look much more realistic, isn't it? And that's the major advantage of using markers as your base for color pencil drawing, because it can quickly block in all the necessary shades that you want in your drawing, and also it saves you a lot of time because you don't have to fill out all the grains of the paper because the alcohol ink have already stained the paper for you. For our color pencil layer, I just chose all the violet or purple and blue shade that I can get in my color pencil set, because I only use 24 colors, so I had to use all of the colors that I have at my disposal. And this shade, I think it is burgundy or maroon, I don't know what that is, but that matched the reference so well and I used that pencil a lot. Before you move on with your color pencil layer, make sure that the alcohol base is completely dry to the touch, because if it is wet, then I don't think that it's going to take on the color pencil layer easily. So just make sure that it is completely dry. If you notice, I'm using white and I am drawing all the highlighted areas first, because the wrapper is highly reflective, so in order to achieve that look, you need to maintain those highlights as bright as it can, so that's why I am doing it first. Once I've made sure that I have all the highlights in place, I'm going to move on with the other colors and I'm going to correct all the values that I can see in the reference image. Just like any other color pencil drawing, I am adding lots of layers of color pencils on top of each other to get the right shade that I want, so that's not an exception for this technique. This drawing might actually seem tough or maybe time consuming or maybe it takes lots of effort, but in reality that's not the case, because the only thing that you need to do is understand your reference and create a marker base, and that base is going to do 90% of the work for you. And when you add your color pencils, all you have to do is correct the values that you can see in your reference, and that's it. The drawing is going to look like you put in lots of time and effort into it. Now that my color pencil layer is done, I'm going to move on with my white gel pen, and the first thing that I do is I write the letters Dairy Milk again, because with all the color pencil layers and the marker layers, the letters are not really neat, so I'm going to clean it up. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to add in all the other highlights that I can see in the reference image. And also for some really subtle highlights, what I do is that I add these white gel pen to those areas and then I smudge it with my fingers. And this way it is going to look much more softer, but at the same time it's going to be bright. But keep in mind to not add too much highlights, otherwise it's not going to look realistic. And now I'm cleaning the paper because I have smudged the color pencil, so the paper is quite dirty and that's why I'm cleaning it. And for the final step, I'm going to add the shadows using a 6B graphite pencil, and this is going to make the drawing look much more realistic. I'm just adding it right underneath those chocolates and I'm blending it out with my fingers. I'm also adding a little bit of that burgundy color, and with a colorless blender that comes along with this marker set, I'm going to blend it out. And since this has alcohol in it, it is going to dissolve both the color pencils and the graphite, and the shadow is going to look much smoother and much less textured. Just a few finishing touches and that's it. I hope you enjoyed today's video. So if you did, then give this video a big thumbs up so that it can reach a lot more people, and let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll talk to you guys in another video. Bye everybody.